I just love my little local thrift shop. I always find so many great treasures in there at amazing prices. Here is what I picked up for the Christmas challenge hosted by my friend Margie over at the Asking Spot. Here is some denim approximately 1 yard I snagged for 50 cents, some embroidery floss for $2, some wool yarn I picked up for $1, and this is just a bunch of random things. Lots and lots of vintage buttons in there, and I am a sucker for vintage buttons. I also got this little sign, a little serving tray, a straw wreath, and another sign. All of these items were in good or new condition. I'm starting off with this sign. I'm going to paint over all of the words with some white chalk paint. This is just some very inexpensive chalk paint I picked up at Joann Fabrics. I'm using an artist brush and just going over the letters. I actually did 2 coats of paint on this sign to completely cover up the words. I'm going to be using my denim fabric to make a Christmas tree. So I'm making a template. I'm folding a piece of paper in half, and I am hand drawing half of a Christmas tree out onto the piece of paper. Then I'm just taking a pair of scissors and I'm cutting out the half of a Christmas tree. When I'm finished cutting out the half of a Christmas tree, I will open it up and I will have a whole entire Christmas tree. Doing it this way makes sure it's symmetrical on both sides and matching. I am going to take my paper Christmas tree template and lay it down onto my denim fabric. I'm then going to take a pen and trace around my piece of paper Christmas tree template that I made. You will need a very sharp pair of scissors or fabric scissors to cut out your Christmas tree from the denim fabric. And just cut along the lines that you traced out with your pen. When I'm finished cutting out my denim Christmas tree, I lay it out onto my sign and I'm just making sure it's centered and in the middle before I use a hot glue gun to tack everything down and secure it to my sign. I found lots of little fun things inside the bag of random goodies I got at the thrift store. I found a little buckle for a belt, and I'm going to use this as the tree trunk of my Christmas tree. And I'm just using my hot glue gun to secure it and glue it down. I will be adding my wool yarn next. onto my denim Christmas tree to kind of resemble garland or a string of lights that is draped around a Christmas tree. I'm going to use all the little vintage buttons to resemble little Christmas tree ornaments on my tree. So I'm just placing them where I want them to go, and then I will use my hot glue gun to glue them down. For project number 2, it will be super simple and easy. I'm just going to start out by painting this little wooden tray with some Waverly chalk paint, a very inexpensive brand. I did do 2 coats of the red paint on this little wooden tray. Next, I will be using a stencil that I found on Amazon. I will make sure to link that below. I like to tap off any extra paint that might be on my brush. That way I do not overload my stencil. This can sometimes cause bleed through underneath the stencil. For my third project, I will be making a coffee filter wreath. I'm just using coffee filters, and I'm folding them in half, and then I'm folding them in half again to kind of make a pizza slice shape or a triangle. I want my coffee filter wreath to resemble a candy cane. So I'm going to be dyeing them with some red acrylic paint. I'm using some water and a sponge brush, and I'm just adding the acrylic paint to the water. You can use as much as you desire. Obviously, the more water you have added to your acrylic paint, the lighter your coffee filter will be. The more paint you have, the darker your coffee filter will be. Then I'm taking my coffee filters and I'm dipping them into my watered down paint mixture, putting them in a pan, and continuously doing this until I have my amount of coffee filters that I think I will need for my wreath. It's kind of hard to judge the amount you need. You just kind of think you do what you think you need, and then if you need more, you obviously just dye some more. Then you have to wait for these to completely dry. I often will take a blow dryer to them and dry them because it makes the process quite a bit faster, as it can take several days for them to dry completely on their own. Then once they are dry, you do the same thing as you did with your white coffee filters. You fold them in half once, and then you fold them in half again to get your triangle shape. I covered the back of my wreath with some coffee filters, and I attached it with glue just so that it looked nicer and more finished on the back side. To attach my coffee filters, I'm using my hot glue gun. I'm adding a dab onto my wreath, and then I am just sticking down the corner of my coffee filter into the glue. I'm just going to do this all the way around the wreath and go in rows. One thing to remember is the closer together your coffee filters are, the more fluffy and full your wreath will be. Once I get all of my coffee filters glued onto the straw wreath, I start to open them. I just go through all of them, open them up, and is what makes them really super fluffy. You can always go through and add more coffee filters if you feel like one spot needs some more. And this is the final step for the coffee filter wreath. And on my fourth project, I start out by painting my Love Lives Here sign, and I'm using a white chalk paint. And I did about 3 coats on this one to give it full coverage, and then I decided I didn't really like the white, so I went in with some red. And the white was still wet, so it blended a little bit, and then I took my paintbrush and I went in the opposite direction to pull the blends towards the left and the right. On this sign, I'm going to be using my vintage buttons to make a wreath. I wanted to have some little fabric leaves, so I'm using some felt that I had on hand, as well as the denim fabric that I bought from the thrift store, and I'm just hand cutting out little leaves. I then took some green acrylic craft paint and painted my denim leaves green. I'm stenciling stripes onto the sign as well. I laid out all of my buttons and my leaves before I glued everything down, so that way I knew where they were, where I wanted them, and just so I made sure I was happy with the design before I added the glue and made everything permanent. I added the tie back into the hole up at the top, and then this project was done. I hope you enjoy all my little thrift crafts that I made. What a great way to reuse and repurpose things. Thank you so much to Margie for hosting this challenge. I will put the playlist in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope you feel inspired. Happy holidays, everyone.